Do we know where the uranium actually is at the moment?
We knew, and we think we know. Most of this stockpile was, for the most part, in a big nuclear compound, which is called Isfahan, near the city of Isfahan. It was there. It was stocked there at the time of the 12-day war last year. So it is believed that the consensus of the community is that it is still there. Even the Iranians have said that it is. So yeah, that's the situation.
Is there any enriched uranium above ground that the Iranians could access, and if so, at what enrichment level?
Well, there could be some amounts on another site, which is called Natanz. But I think both, even the underground and the above ground, which is a smaller quantity, would be accessible in case there was a wish to be there, to go there.
So what do you think the appropriate solution should be? Is there an off-ramp where maybe some of this could be moved to a third-party country?
Well, there is a negotiation. So it is for those negotiating to determine what they want or what they can achieve together in this process. It is, of course, clear that the issue of this material must be addressed some way or another. And there are different alternatives that have been considered, shipping it out, downblending it. And so it is for them to decide. The fact that there is this material is a fact. It is for them to decide. The IAEA, what the IAEA needs to know is that this material is not being diverted. It is accounted for, and we can check where this is.
Does the IAEA have an idea of what survived in terms of centrifuges? How many when it comes to the U.S.-Israeli attack?
Not exactly, because we haven't been able to return there. However, we know these places very, very well. We know the different characteristics of the buildings, and we know the kind of kinetic force that was used there. We do have satellite imagery, so we have a pretty good idea of what might still be there.
We have a ceasefire. Is it part of the negotiations, the talks? Have you asked to get access to these sites, to get your inspectors back in?
Well, I will put it, more or less. I will put it slightly differently. It is, the idea is that when there is an agreement, one essential component of that agreement is that whatever is agreed is inspectable, verifiable. In introduction, you were quoting something I said, that an agreement without verification is an illusion of an agreement. It's a promise. Who knows?
So I know you've been in touch with Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner.
Yes.
Have you seen or spoken to President Trump as well as the Iranian
not the president.
side?
I've been working with Special Envoy Ambassador Witkoff and with Dr. Kushner, yes.
Are you closer to getting them back at the table?
To getting whom to the table?
The Iranians and the Americans back at the table?
To a certain extent, there is a table, and they have this table, it's on and off, but there is a conversation, yeah.
Have you returned to Iran since February 28th?
Myself? Or, well, the inspectors,
IAEA.
The IAEA, yes, partially, because we have been able to return to the places that were not attacked. Right? So the Iranians are making our return contingent to an agreement.
How much are you concerned that this episode will only reignite nuclear aspirations around the world in countries that see the success of North Korea and, frankly, the success of Iran, at least in the threat potentially to fend off this type of attack again, should they actually acquire a nuclear weapon?
I've heard that, and that is an argument that I frankly disagree with, and I'll tell you why. We've seen all the commotion and even war, destruction and misery, proliferation attempts bring. You see this, and I'm not saying whether it was justified or not, I'm just telling you, see this, and let's go back in history. Let's go to Iraq. Let's go to Syria. Let's go to Libya. Every time there has been one of these attempts to get to nuclear weapon or weapons of mass destruction, for that matter, there has been a problem. There have been wars. There has been death and destruction.
At the same time, in Bloomberg today, there was a big story about how North Korea is actually accelerating its production of nuclear weapons and potentially is on track to have one of the biggest stockpiles out there and potentially could overwhelm any kind of countermeasures in the region. I mean, at what point do you expect to see more of this, considering that there are nations that would like to immunize themselves from these types of threats?
We cannot exclude it. I mean, you have a point. We cannot exclude it. The case of the DPRK, I mean, they proliferated in 2006. So 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, they decided to cross the line, they tested, they expelled the IAEA inspectors a little bit later, I must say, because it's a story that has lots of ups and downs and processes, not dissimilar in a certain sense with what is being attempted with Iran, incentives of sorts, and then at some point that country, in a different geopolitical, geographical scenario, decided to cross the line.